Starting. Kusum?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yep, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Food Safety Conversation. And this month, we are talking about USFDA regulations and how the India FBOs who wish to export the products to the USA should prepare themselves. The US and India are among the top food producing nations, globally offering significant opportunities for collaboration and strengthening the sector's foundation. The US is India's largest market for F&B exports. Policy and regulations significantly influence exports. The US FDA, like any other regulatory body, established specific requirements for food safety. It is a challenge for any food company to keep up with these stringent and constantly evolving laws. Talking about the topic, we have Dr. Pankaja Panda. Pankaja is the Senior Technical Advisor, Food, of the US Food and Drug Administration, India's office. She has 28 years of public health experience and has worked for USAID and the US Department of Health, both in the US and overseas in Africa and Asia. Pankaja has a doctorate in nutrition from University of Maryland and a Master of Public Health from Johns Hopkins University. In this role, she provides expert guidance on food safety regulatory issues and technical matters related to food products. Her work involves advising on policy development, overseeing compliance with food safety regulations, and supporting initiatives to ensure the safety and quality of food consumed in the United States. Welcome, Dr. Pankaja. We also have Dr. Madhusmita, currently heading the Food Scientific and Regulatory Affairs at MTR Foods Private Limited. She comes with 20 years of rich experience in the field of food safety, quality, food regulatory, and scientific affairs. She has many achievements added to her career graph. She is an industry member, Codex Committee for the category Spices and Culinary Herbs. Her work as a technical lead to draft the food safety standards of Bangladesh is recently acknowledged and appreciated by FAO and Bangladesh Food Safety Authority. Welcome, Dr. Madhusmita. Pleasure having both of you for our conversation. And before we start, a little bit about myself. I'm Sarika Agarwal, Managing Director and Principal Consultant at FoodSafetyWorks. We are a food safety consulting company based out of Bangalore with offices in Mumbai and Delhi. Let's start our conversation with Dr. Pankaja. Could you share some insights into the emerging trends or critical issues in food safety that currently demand your attention? Additionally, you have observed any significant shifts or developments within the Indian food industry that are noteworthy?
Thank you, Dr. Sarika. Very timely, I just came back from Chennai, where we had a meeting with Government of India counterparts on the brand new traceability rule. People may not know about it. It's the FDA's latest rule on food traceability. I encourage you to visit the fda.gov website to learn more about this. There are certain foods that are on the food traceability list, and they will be required to comply with this rule by January of 2026. So we began our efforts of outreach first with the Government of India, and especially for seafood. On that list, seafood is the most important food item that is exported from India to the US. And we had a very good engagement with them, and we do plan future engagements with industry, since the seafood industry will be impacted by this rule. The other things that have come up over the past few months, in spices, there was this issue of ethylene oxide. I don't know if people know about this, but the EU has passed some very strict guidelines about that. However, for FDA, the tolerance limits are somewhat higher. These are actually not set by FDA. They're set by the Environmental Protection Agency of the US. And so they have not really been come under the scrutiny of FDA for spices. We continue to have some seafood refusals. As you know, it's the #1 export from the US to the US, sorry. So that information is shared with our government counterparts so that they can take some follow-up actions with the seafood industry. I'll stop there for any other questions.
No, nothing at the moment. Yeah, so we'll continue, So if you see any significant shifts or developments within the Indian food industry that are noteworthy?
Sorry, is that question to me?
Yes, that was the second part of the question.
Okay. Okay. I haven't had much interaction with the industry per se, besides the trainings that we have provided to industry. We have provided a lot of seafood safety trainings like HACCP, decomposition, sanitation, and good aquaculture practices, hosted by our government counterparts, FSSAI, EIC, MPEDA, Spices Board, and CAA, Coastal Aquaculture Authority. We've also had good agriculture practice training for farmers with Spices Board, as well as good manufacturing practices training with Spices Board for companies that produce spices. So our interaction has sort of been limited to these two commodity areas, seafood and spices. I hope these trainings have helped them because all the QA people came. So I hope they learned something and went back and, changed things in the company.
Hopefully we wish the same, right? Saying like there's some change in the industry, training is one tool which helps to drive that change for sure, right? So yeah, thank you, Dr. Pankaja. I think that is a good reference point to start with. My follow-up question to Dr. Madhu, based on your extensive experience, what strategies or best practices would you recommend for staying informed about the continuously evolving landscape of food regulations, especially those set by FDA?
Okay, so if you see specifically with reference to FDA, the USFDA website is the best reference point. You get, it's very transparent regulation. You will get all the information in handy. What are the updates? When the draft is released? Is it open for public comment? You can even share your comments. And what is the enforcement date? Very clear. However, for all the exporters exporting to US, for them, the first source of information always comes from their distributors, the importer, who is their, importer, the distributor point for them. And then nowadays, everything is, uh, before anywhere else, you will get to know everything from the social media. So like Madam Pankaja was mentioning about the ethylene oxide. And we belong to a spice industry, MTR. If you see the brand Orkla is the largest exporter of spices along with brand Eastern from India. So our first step was we reached out to our distributor. Is there anything, because there was social media news and there was also press release by different countries like Singapore and Hong Kong, and that was our first source of information. Where there was nothing, then our next step was, as Madam said, there is a clear cut limits defined by USFDA, particularly the center, the Environment Control Act, and there was no change. And in fact, when we reached out to the authority, Indian authority, and the Ministry of Commerce through Spice Board, the very good support we have got from USFDA, very clear, saying that no, the limit is still valid and these are all done based on the toxicological study. So that is how the different source of information you get from your distributor, from the website, then from through different associations. We are also part of the All India Spice Exporters Federations. So through your association also you get the information. So these are all the different sources where you can keep yourself updated about the new trend or the something amendment, some changes happening in the regulations.
Fair enough. Yeah, great perspective. Now back to you, Dr. Pankaja. Madhu did, mention saying like it's transparent system at FDA that everything is there on the website. But as a FPO, right, what are the common challenges that you see that the foreign food businesses encounter when navigating FDA regulations? And what do you think, what steps can Indian FBOs take to effectively address the challenges?
Thank you. I put up the FDA.gov website where, again, I encourage people to go and look up. It's a lot of information, so it'll take you a while to actually go through all of it. But we also have a mailbox, and I'm going to put that address also for the FDA India office. And we get a lot of information from these inquiries that we get. Any and everybody is welcome to send inquiries to us, not only on the food side, but the pharma side as well. And most of the inquiries that I get is about registration. So it's a requirement. All companies that export to the US need to register. It's free of charge. It's online. You just have to go to the website and find the link to register. So that's the number one requirement. There are a lot of companies who are in the business of helping you register, but they charge you quite a bit of a fee. So I encourage people to at least first try on their own. And then if they still feel they need help, there is a help desk also. There's a help desk email to work with those people first. Second one is that after you register, you also need, like Dr. Madhusmita mentioned, you need a US-based importer who is actually the contact with FDA. And that person, the US-based importer, will be the one who gets your items through customs and things like that, and helps you distribute it throughout the country and works with FDA if there are any issues that come up. So that's the second thing that people always ask. Can we get a list of US importers? We don't do that. We don't favor anyone over one of the others. We encourage you to look in the web and find somebody that is suitable to your needs. Also, for registration, you need a specific number now. It's like your Aadhaar card number. It's unique to your company. So you need to also register for that. Again, it's free, and it's part of the registration process. So I think these are the 2 or 3 questions that I get most frequently in our mailbox.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaja, for your valuable insight. It sounds easy, and for sure, it's not that easy, for sure, right? That's what I think. And definitely, yes, I think our audience is finding your information incredibly useful. Now, coming to you, Madhu, could you share how you navigate the complex regulatory requirements for exporting products to international markets? With every country having their own requirements, right? It's not similar. Even though we have the same standards, you can say it's GFSI, but still, every country has their own requirement. What advice would you give to other companies aiming to achieve the same?
Okay. So again, if you intend to export to USA, your first point is you find a US importer, a distributor who helps you, and ask for the piece of the mandatory information what is required. As Madam Pankaja said, you need to have first your facility register, that is called as Food Facility Registration FFR. And there is a new requirement since last 2 years now. What Madam has emphasized is you must have a very unique number which is very location specific, that is called as UFI, Unique Facility Identification Number. It's a 9-digit number, and without that you will not get your registration. So first step is registration, and then you will also have to find out. Ministry of Commerce Spice Board has a beautiful chat, and they keep updating all the requirements of the importing countries. For USA, what are those tests, mandatory tests they do? And Spice Board does salmonella test for spices. Similarly, you will also have to see what are the different categories of product. Because when you are applying for the registration, you give what are the category of the products you are enrolling as a manufacturer or as a supplier. And the moment you put the category, it links you to a regulation in the CFR, that is Code of Federal Regulations. For example, if you are, say, supplying flavored milk and it comes under milk, then the CFR will tell you what are the do's and don'ts. Very clearly, the product standard, what are the claims, labeling, specific labeling requirements. It's very transparent regulation. You will come to know for that particular products what are the different requirements you have to adhere to. On Spice Board, you will get what are the mandatory tests required. And if it is a milk products, then you will have to go for a health certificate. That is a clearance from the Animal Husbandry Department. There is also on the EIC website, what Madam Pankaja was emphasizing. On the EIC website also you will find information, and they also certify the exporters. You can go for mandatory certification for the milk and milk products, fish and fish products, mainly meat and meat products. And there is also a scheme available for the voluntary certifications. They inspect, voluntarily inspect your plants, and they also, before applying for the export, you have to apply for the EIA export certificate, give your details, and they issue you a export certificate. That gives that additional layer of confidence to us as an exporter. Yes, because it has been monitored before going out of this country, it has been supervised by authorized authority. So these are the different complex things. It's not complex. Nowadays, it's available, and government is very much supportive. And moreover, USFDA is one of the best regulations, I feel, because it's very transparent.
Thank you, Madhu. But as a layman who's starting a FBO, this looks really complicated, huh? Jumping from one EIA to EIC to FDA to registration. But then, yeah, for sure, for the first timers, it might be complicated. But then, as you look into it, yeah, it becomes pretty easy. Yes, yes, Pankaja, you had
I
something.
I just wanted to clarify that all these certifications and tests, these are required by Government of India.
Yes.
FDA does not require any certificates from the country of origin or testing, etc. This is Government of India imposed for their own needs. And we do our own testing at port of entry. We do our own sampling at port of entry. The sample is sent to FDA labs all across the US. So we use our own labs. And here in India, we have our food inspectors who go to the firms itself, factories itself, to do inspections. So that is how we regulate and ensure the food is safe from FDA perspective. What Government of India requires, you just heard from Dr. Manju Smith. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Yes, so Madam is very right. So even though you get a clearance from Spice Board or EIA certificate, your consignment is subjected to sampling and testing by USFDA. So the best part before starting exporting to that country is you just go by the import alerts, which are very clearly published on USFDA website for your category of the product. So you will be knowing what is the current trend, for what reason Indian products of that category are getting detained, and what is the issue. For example, salmonella in spices. So then you take all your measures, ensure that your product is complying to that requirements.
Yeah, that's a great respite to know, saying like, US does its own, checks and balances. But then for sure, as an exporter, you need to be sure what you are exporting to the market, right? You are making sure you are adhering to the regulatory requirements of that country. So for that, you do it. But then, yes, again, I was just thinking when Madhu was mentioning, saying like salmonella in spices, right? And then again, you send a sample, your lab doesn't show any salmonella, it shows absent, but the lab in US might show it, present. So that's again a big, I think a story to open up, right? So anyway, so I think, yeah, yes, Pankaja, you have something.
What we find is that according to our inspectors who come back and we have a discussion, is that the sampling techniques used by FDA are very different from the techniques used by Indian firms or the government of India. And so they have a tendency to miss contamination if it occurs. So it's the technique, how many samples to take, the random samples per unit of food, and also the method used is sometimes not correct because they go to the farms. Many farms have their own labs. They check out the labs and find that they're not using the correct method for testing. So these are the two issues, the sampling method and the testing method, the actual test itself.
Yeah, that explains. So competency is required, making sure the right samples been picked up. The number of samples picking up is the right numbers, and the process used for analyzing, and the person who's analyzing needs to be competent. I think, yeah, that's been a problem that we also get into when people come back saying like, hey, I did this sampling here and I did the sampling here. The results are different, even though the company is same, right? One doing in UK and in India, same entity, different results. So, and the same product, same batch number. So that's really a concern factor, right? Yeah. So back to you, Dr. Pankaja. So could you please elaborate on how the US FDA collaborates with other organizations at the local level, such as the FSSAI in India, to address food safety concerns?
Yes. We very much cherish our partnership with FSSAI because they are the domestic regulator. However, we also work with EIC and MPEDA because seafood is the #1 export to the US. And also with Coastal Aquaculture Authority, not that they are a regulator, but they are in charge of the farms, the aquaculture farms from where the shrimp comes. And then FSSAI, EIC, MPEDA, Spices Board for spices, also in the top 5 exports to the US, and CAA, Coastal Aquaculture Authority. With FSSAI, we have had several meetings over the years where we have discussed changes in US regulations, changes in the Food Safety Act of India. We are trying very much to attend all they have a lot of conferences, as you know, and meetings. They have an upcoming global regulatory conference. We very much try and make sure that we are there so that our voice is heard, and we partner with them in informing their audience about, just like this, FDA regulatory practices and rules. FSSAI has come to several of our trainings in seafood and spices, since they sort of overlook all food commodities. Although they're not involved in the export of the foods, it's more domestic. But we feel that as the regulator, if they can come and participate and learn It benefits not only the US consumer, but the Indian consumer. In fact, it benefits the global consumer, because anything learnt in food safety by Indian authorities and Indian industry affects the entire world, because food is being sent all over the world, exported now. So we greatly value that and work very closely with FSSAI.
That's good to know. Moving to you, Madhu, are there any recent or upcoming regulatory changes in the food industry that you think will significantly impact your operations?
See, yes, as we all heard from Dr. Pankaj in the beginning, ethylene oxide in spices, that is definitely Indian regulators are drafting the regulation. It's very good, very fast, very soon it's going to come. That will have impact if the ETO is, if ETO there is a ban or there is a stringent limit like EU is enforced in India. However, since I am also very active in industry member in all the associations, and we lead the spice agenda with the regulators as well from the industry side. So we have also given some insight of USFDA regulations where a limit is defined for ETO, and that is very well considered. And as Madam said, FSSI also reaches out to USFDA government and seek their support in doing a proper risk assessment to bring that regulation in place. That is one, because if you see USFDA, they are more concerned on the environment pathogens that is harmful to human health, that is salmonella, and ethylene oxide is a permitted sterilization method by USFDA with a residual limit clearly defined in the regulations. So actually, you are going to ban ATO, but then you have to also have that alternate method to address the salmonella issue. We all know how Indian spice industry face the challenges of the microbial contamination. That is one. The second issue which is going to impact is also the pesticide residue issues. The pesticide residue issues, because the manufacturer, they do not add pesticides while manufacturing. It all comes from the farm level. And if you see farmers, the raw agriculture commodities, those are exempted from the scope of both FSSAI as well as USFDA. So it's a pain point. But however, I am aware about that Indian regulators are in conversation with Codex and different country regulations, and also have done a scientific based risk assessment to derive a doable, and which is also from a consumer health and safety point of view, some limit they are going to revise the standard. That also we are aware. The third part, which is also now USFDA has released a draft, is on the plastic regulations. That is, they have come up with some strategy to prevent the plastic pollution. That draft is called Strategy to Prevent Plastic Pollution, which is notified recently. I guess, April 2023. It is notified in draft by USFDA, and it was open for public comment. And now the comments are also closed in July 2023. So the comments are under consideration now. So that also will pose some kind of challenge for those who sell the ready to eat products and also provide a plastic spoon. We sell even sweets, ready to eat Indian sweets, rasgulla, gulab jamun, and we provide a spoon, right? So you are not allowed to put a wooden spoon there. That is not part of your that hazard analysis plan, wood contamination. So for that, you will have to find an alternative how to deal with that. So that is also Australia has already initiated. India, it's going on very strongly, and USFDA also has now released a draft. So it's definitely going to impact industry. Industry has to find an alternative that is again cost effective, as well as from a consumer safety point of view, it is it is good to do some solutions.
Yeah, I think rightly mentioned, saying, the farmers, right, who grow food, whether it's a plant or an animal, everything happens on the farm. And they are exempted. They can put whatever they want. There's no control. How do you control the microbial hazard or your chemical hazards that can come into your product? So yeah, that was a discussion, last time when I was there as well, saying like, I think it's high time the regulators start looking into it, saying that how do you control the source itself? For as a FBO, you can't remove the chemical contaminants which comes, right? I do remember once the US with the papayas, they had various problems with microbial load being high in the papaya, and finally it was the irrigation water which was not potable to irrigate, and then that's where your papayas were getting contaminated, right? So definitely I think GAPs are something which has to be more emphasized and looked into, to make sure we don't use too much of ETO later, and we don't get into those problems as using sterilizing methods and all of this. Very rightly put, Madhu. It's been a fantastic conversation so far. So folks who have tuned in, you can post your questions and we will take them at the end of the session. Continuing with the conversation about the regulatory changes with you, Dr. Pankaja, the US FDA's detailed product tracking, which you did touch upon in the starting, requirements under Section 204 of the FSMA are set to be enforced starting 2026. Could you provide some insights into these requirements? Additionally, what steps should the Indian food industry take to adequately prepare for these regulatory change?
Basically, what US FDA is asking for is if there is a outbreak of a foodborne illness and the suspect food is identified, they need to know the source of the food. So whether it's a domestic or international company making the food or processing the food, they will have a time period of about 24 hours, maybe a little more for international due to time difference, to provide that information. Because once the source is known, then you don't have to recall the entire food commodity. You can just recall that batch, and thereby being more targeted and cost effective. That's the main purpose behind this rule, is to reduce the illnesses and sometimes deaths due to foodborne illness. So there is, I again encourage you to go to our website. There is a list of foods which have been identified based on a risk model into which multiple factors have gone in. One being if it causes foodborne illness, and other factors have been taken into consideration to make this list. Spices are not on the list. And I know that the Spices Board of India is quite upset about that. I said to them, I said, be happy, less for you to do. But, they want to be proactive also. So we just, like I mentioned, had a meeting with government and they were included in the meeting. Although seafood is the number one food on that list exported to the US, and the seafood industry will have to comply by January 26. And there are examples for seafood, for produce, for milk products to show how along the whole process, you as a food producer need to keep track of that item using something called a traceability lot code, TLC. So there are critical tracking events. which have been identified. For example, when the shrimp is collected at the farm, there needs to be a way of identifying which pond it came from. So that's one thing. So that's an event. Then what data elements you have to take care of? I guess you want the farm registration there. What other elements? If you have 12 ponds, you want the pond number. That's just two examples. You could have a longer code depending on what items you want to capture in that code, so that eventually if something happens, it can be traced back. So that sort of in essence is the new rule.
Okay. So Pankaja, coming back to you again, how ready do you think as India market we are for, putting this rule in place by Jan 2026?
I believe a lot of Indian companies are already doing it because their buyers in the US have required it even before the rule. They knew that some stuff is coming out, so that they started preparing their suppliers in India. And so a lot of the industry is aware of it, and that the buyers are requiring it because they also want to trace back. The big ones, Walmart and other big, Cisco, all these very huge food companies in the US. Kroger, it's a huge grocery food chain. They all get a lot of stuff. Costco, they get a lot of stuff from India. So they are already requiring these traceability lot codes from the suppliers. And another thing that the rule requires is a plan. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but we do want to know how you are going about this traceability. And if you go to the FDA website, it's all there. There are sample plans, sample critical events to track, key data elements for the code, depending on your commodity. So it's all there.
Yeah, that's good to know. Saying like, I think we are, we've crossed the curve even before something comes up. I think we are there, right there, putting things in place. And also, I think it helps. One of the sustainability goals, wherein the reduction of waste, right? So that's one of our sustainability goals. I think having the traceability will help us somewhere to reduce the wastages that can happen because of your foodborne illnesses, because you know exactly from where which one is the illness happening, and just take that out from the system. Yeah, I think it helps a long way, right, to build the food security across the globe. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So coming to you, Madhu, with MTR, right? How is the technology being utilized to streamline regulatory processes and ensure compliances are met?
See, if you see, we are part of the parent company Orkla, and they have a Orkla food safety standards, all through portal-based approval system. It goes to the next as stakeholders for the approval, and it's we call that we have a product life management cycle, where even your recipe, your whatever labeling and claims, what you do, even those substantiation, what our product developer does is thoroughly assessed, evaluated, and approved by the regulatory stakeholders before go for a commercial scale of trial. So we also have a software. We actually have developed a regulatory archive where we keep updating. It's total 42 countries regulations we have put together, because we export to 42 countries, and USFDA is one of our major exporting countries. So we keep updating those folders, and it's a shared drive, which is access is given to all the stakeholders. We have a very strong IT team here who help us with all these softwares, approval systems. So that is, we have a archive, we have a software called KissFlow, that through which we assess the risk assessment forms or the additive compliance or the ingredient compliance for the products. Coming to the updates on the regulatory trend, for that, as of now, we do not have a software, but I know there are software available. If you subscribe it, you will also, different countries, what are the different amendments happening, what is the enforcement, everything you will get. We too have access to a platform called Mintel GNPD, that is Global Network data for new products. Okay, so there, because if you see MTR, we are not only the spice company, we are also into Indian traditional food. You will not find, for those, it's very, very unique to the Indian consumers, and you will not find the standards there in the website. So for that, we do access to different Indian traditional products available in different countries market through that platform called GNPD. That is called as Global New Product Database. So that gives you the complete what are the products available in that market, in at what period, that mention also at what period the data is accessed, what are the ingredients, additives, what are the claims made, how the packaging structure. It's a beautiful platform for any innovator or exporter can access. If you do not have, if you have a dilemma, what standard has to be followed, what specific requirements pertaining to this particular category. For example, if you see the Indian curries, traditional curries, what we sell in ready to eat formal retorted pouches, there we have seen a trend of people go for a non-GMO certification or non-GMO claim. It's a trend. So we find, okay, that is what attract more consumers. So how to obtain that? What kind of substantiation will have? So that idea we get from the GNPD. Okay.
So yeah, so I think you guys are pretty much having a robust technology to make sure compliances are there, and you have those network where you get all the support, right? So that's good to know. So hopefully with time, all the small coming up entrepreneurs who has the aspirations to send the product to US also build up that network wherein they get all the clarity, compliances, regulation changes, what's happening, and they're also up there, and we see lesser and lesser rejects that happens, what we export to the other countries. Yeah.
Just to add to the technology part, Sarika, if you see, MTR is the pioneer in they are the one who has started the first retorting thermal sterility process for Indian curries and rice items, traditional food items, with the help of Indian government, that is Defense Food Laboratory. So so that's how, if you see today the retort what we have, these are all USFDA approved retorts. And the sterility process, the thermal sterility process is very well approved, and we also submit our submission identification, that is SID, to USFDA to review and approve our SID. Post approval we give. So yes, there are technology. Our retort are very advanced retort and approved by USFDA.
That's really good to know, and that's actually a great insight. So what you guys are doing at MTR. So coming to you, Dr. Pankaja, are there resources or support system available for Indian FBOs to help them understand and comply with FDA regulations?
You mean besides our website?
Yes, absolutely. Because you did mention the website, and I think Madhu as well did that beside the website.
Well, we have a lot of training that people can take. One is the preventive controls. We do require that training to be taken by at least one person in the firm, because that is the person who would be writing the food safety plan. So it's called Preventive Controls for Qualified People, individuals, PCQI. And that is sort of a basic training for human foods. And if you're doing animal feed, there's a separate training for animal foods. And this is offered actually by, I'll put that in the thing, FSPCA, FSPCA, for PCQI training. And if you go to the FSPCA website, you can see the list. We have trained a lot of people here in India as lead instructors. So you don't have to actually take this training online from the US because of the time difference. You can get it right here in India, either online or in person.
Yeah, just to add on to that, we are running one PCQI training, which is happening on 24th of September. It's 20 hours training. So it's from 24th September to 26th of September, right? So yeah, trainings I think are a good way to put the information across to folks who want to learn, who want to develop the system. And as food safety plan is the most important one, right? Like Pankaja mentioned, yeah. So, Madhu, in your opinion, what trends and developments in international food regulations do you anticipate will shape the industry in the coming years?
See, we have already discussed about it, the ETO. Basically, it's a sustainability part, sustainable food, which is, no or a very, very low pesticide. Then you have plastic free, then you have less saturated fat, less added sugar products. So these are the trends which have already started, and every government has started working. Even FBOs like us, we also take the place voluntarily to reduce no plastic, to reduce the salt and sugar in our products gradually. And many companies have already started it. Yes. So these are all the trends.
So you mean aaj se thoda kam
That's
tel
it.
wahan par chini, right? So
Yes.
that's something I think that would be the trend going further. I think clean label is something which people are looking at, right? Everybody wants a shorter ingredient list. They don't want too much complicated. I think people are getting for sure aware, saying like what to eat, what am I picking up, from the shelf, what should I be consuming. I think, yeah, hopefully we have destroyed enough and we'll make it a better now, saying like something which you recognize is what you eat. Multi-processed food is not good for sure. There are a lot of changes, both physically, chemically, and what you look at, right? Yeah. So it has been a great conversation. So we do have some time. The session has been insightful. We will just look at saying like if you have received any questions from our folks who are attending our conversation, we'll just put that across. So we have a question out here from Vindhya Sarma. So she has a question saying like either of you can pick it up, saying like who thinks could be the right one. We want to export ready-to-eat porridges with masala inside and roasted suji to USA. What are the requirements for export?
Madam, can I? Dr. Pankaja?
Yes, please go ahead. No problem. Let me
Yes,
see how much.
yes, yes.
No, I'm kidding.
If you are the first time exporter, then you will have to go for a food facility registration. If you are just starting a new product, then it is again for that particular product, just visit a spice board website, because you said you will also put a spice pouch inside it. Is there any requirement? And you have to also see, basically, if you go through the import alerts, you will find that similar products, what kind of alerts are there published already on the USFDA website, and take control of those through effective processing, hygienically packing, and the quality control part. Labeling and claims, if you see the import guidelines, there is a guidance document available on the USFDA website that says you what are the mandatory labeling has to be done, what are the effective way of labeling. For example, USFDA doesn't recognize the E number. Like for additives, that they do not recognize any number. You have to mention the name. For example, if it is a soda, you have to clearly mention the sodium bicarbonate. You have to also mention the functional class as a leavening agent or acidulant citric acid, like that. They do not recognize the number. So similar insight you will get in that guidance document. They also have a nutrition fact table, very clear cut guidelines. What are the mandatory declarations? What is the font size? And what is the percentage daily value, the threshold value, which you have to refer to derive your nutrition fact information. So these are the things you will have to just to refer before starting exporting that new product to the US market.
Hope that helps, Vindya. Pankaja, you want to add something?
No, I think that was fine. I'm just trying to find we have a website which is
Okay. So in the meantime, maybe let me push out the another question, which we have it from
yeah.
Anisha. So Anisha has a question saying, how do we proceed after receiving FDA registration number to get the FDA certificate for an Indian food company?
There is no people. One second, can you hear me?
Yes, Pankaja, please go ahead.
I don't know why. I don't know. I seem to have 1 second. I seem to have lost the. It's
No,
it's not helping.
Can hear you. You can go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. So there is no certificate from USFDA. People get confused. They think we certify a farm, we certify a food item. There is no such thing. All we require is registration. The certificates you're talking about are probably from the government of India. They won't let you export out of India without them. That's not our requirement.
Right. So another one out here, what are the technical and commercial documents required for agro producers?
For agro.
Yes.
Yeah, we have something called the Produce Safety Rule under the Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011. That is the act which is short form is FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, 2011. And there is a Produce Safety Rule which deals specifically with the requirements for produce, agriculture produce.
Another question out here from Kirupa. She has asked, if I am a manufacturer and exporter of food, dietary supplements, do I need to register my facility? That's number one. The second part is, if yes, what about my product register approval? And could you provide the roadmap?
You do have to register since dietary supplements are consumed as part of your diet. And so it's a food, considered food item. And there are, different requirements for dietary supplements. Again, I encourage you to go to our FDA website, type in dietary supplements, and it'll come under, the regulations that are required. And but you definitely have to register. There are specific requirements for dietary supplements, like example, if it's an ingredient, you have to register that, things like that. So I don't want to go into too much detail. It'll take up time. please just go and check on the website. Yeah. Or send me an email at USFDAINO@fdahhs.gov, and I will send you the requirements.
That's
easier that way.
nice to know. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Pankaja. Yeah, I think we do not have any more questions at the moment, and for sure, I think people will reach out to both of you in case they have anything, and they can reach out to us as well. So we would like to basically close this session with some quick final remarks. First off, Dr. Pankaja, from you.
Thank you so much, Sarika, for having me on this food conversation. It was very enlightening to hear different perspectives and to also get some nice questions. I want to encourage people to go to our website yet again and also use our mailbox, email box, US-FDA-INO. INO is for India office @FDA.hhs.gov. Thank you.
Last but not the least, Madhu, from you, your wrap up.
Yes. So yes, very, very enlightening session, as Dr. Pankaja said. And questions are also like very specific. The one thing I just want to tell the participants is compliance is the first step to ensure the food safety. So compliance, everything available in USFDA website, there is no compromise on compliance. Thank you so much, Sarika and the FoodSafetyWorks team to invite me as a speaker in this conversation. It's thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you everyone. So if you want a good night's sleep, I think compliance, regulatory compliance is the key to make sure your food safety is there and you have a good night's sleep. Don't worry about saying like whether my product's going to be through, not through, accepted, rejected, recalled, traced back, whatever it is, right? So do make sure you have your good systems, processes, compliances in place. It might cost you a bit in the starting, but it takes you a long way for sure, right? It was a pleasure to have such a heartening discussion. We hope this has been insightful and will trigger some thoughts on the topic. I want to take this time to thank both the panelists, Dr. Pankaja and Dr. Madhu, for taking the time out of the busy schedule to be with us. As we start wrapping up, a little bit about ourselves. We are a food consulting company on a mission to keep food safe for human consumption. Food Safety Conversation is our monthly webinar series to share knowledge from practitioners on the various aspects of food and safety. Do share your feedback on our email ID, feedback@foodsafetyworks.com. If there are topics that you would like us to cover, please send them to us as well, and we will try to bring them to you. To stay updated on our webinars, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, and Twitter, and our handle is FoodSafetyWorks. We regularly share news and insights about what is going on in the world of food safety. As a company, we are committed to sharing knowledge and providing end-to-end solutions for food safety. We conduct regular online training on various topics, including FOSTAC training, PCQI training, as per the FSSAI mandate or FSMA mandate. To check out how we can help you on your journey of health and safety in food, please visit our website, www.foodsafetyworks.com. While you are there, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you once again for joining. Have a good rest of the day and wishing you safe times ahead. Thank you once again to Dr. Pankaja and Dr. Madhu. Thank you.
Thank you.